A cow came to a long-abandoned well every day and stared into its gloomy depths for a long time. The villagers did not understand why she was doing this, but one day the farmer finally dared to look down, and what he saw at the bottom changed his life forever. Ivan Matveyevich, an elderly farmer from the remote south of Kazakhstan, had lived almost his entire life in a small aul, lost among the endless steppes, rare hills, and sun-scorched roads, where the wind roamed freely, as if meeting no obstacles or borders on its way, and where the days flowed slowly, almost imperceptibly merging into one another, bringing no special changes, anxieties, or surprises. He was already over 60, and every morning of his began the same way. With the first glimmers of light on the horizon, he went out into the yard, listened to the sounds of the waking farm, fed the livestock, checked the pens, mended the fences, and then walked around the yard for a long time as if reconvincing himself that everything was in place, everything was calm, everything was under control. And in this simplicity, in this repetition, he found a special, almost unnoticeable consolation, because it had always been this way. His father and grandfather had lived like this, and it seemed that it simply could not be otherwise. But over time, one strange detail began to creep into this established order, at first almost imperceptible, then increasingly persistent. And it was connected to his old cow named Zorka, who had lived with him for many years, since the days when his strength allowed him to keep a large farm and there were far fewer worries. Zorka had a quiet disposition. She was not afraid of the wind, strangers, or even night sounds, but there was always something unusual in her behavior. She seemed to listen to the world more attentively than others, as if she felt what was inaccessible to a human. And with age, this peculiarity of hers began to manifest itself even more strongly, especially in one strange habit that was repeated day after day, not changing in any weather or under any circumstances. Every morning, after Ivan Matveyevich released the cattle to the pasture, Zorka would go far away from the others, to the very edge of the steppe plot, where among the dry grass and rare thorny bushes an old abandoned well was hidden, built of cracked stone, darkened by time and covered with rare patches of moss. This well had not been used for a long time. The water in it was considered spoiled, and it was gradually collapsing. The edges were crumbling. The inner masonry had collapsed in places, and none of the locals approached it anymore without special necessity. But Zorka invariably went exactly there, stopped at the very edge and for a long time motionlessly looked down into the dark depth, as if something was happening there that was important only to her alone. At first, even Matveyevich did not give this any importance. He just brushed it off, thinking that the animal just had its own whims. Maybe it was cooler there, or she liked the smell of damp stone, or she was just looking for shade because the sun in the steppe rose quickly and spared no one. However, the days passed, weeks turned into months, and the strangeness did not disappear. On the contrary, it became more and more obvious. Zorka came to the well at the same time, stood there for a long time, almost without moving, sometimes even forgetting about the grass around, and this no longer looked like an accident. There was something disturbing, almost alarming in her immobility, and one day Ivan Matveyevich caught himself thinking that he had been watching her longer than necessary, putting off his chores, looking closely, as if trying to solve someone else's secret. And the more he looked, the stronger the feeling became that the cow felt something hidden, something that was not visible to the eye but existed nearby, beneath the surface of the familiar world. This thought at first seemed stupid to him, almost superstitious. He even grinned, remembering old conversations about animals supposedly sensing trouble or finding water. But the longer this observation lasted, the harder it was to dismiss the strange feeling that he was facing not just a habit, but a sign, a hint that he could not yet understand. And one day, after a particularly long observation, when Zorka stood by the well for almost an hour, without moving or taking her eyes off the darkness, he decided that he had to figure it out. The thought of going down first seemed reckless to him. He imagined how slippery stones could fail him, how easily he could fall, how the cold and dampness would hit his bones, but curiosity would not let go. It grew inside, became persistent, almost demanding, and in the end, he gave in. Having prepared as best he could, taking a rope and an old lantern, he approached the well, stopped for a moment, listened to the silence around, as if hoping that the step itself would tell him whether it was worth doing, but nothing changed. The wind still drove the dry grass, the sun still rose, and then he began to descend. Carefully, step by step, clinging to the ledges of the stones, trying not to look down for too long. The walls of the well were damp, in places slippery, covered with a coating and rare islands of moss, and with every meter it became darker and cooler. The sounds from above gradually died away as if staying somewhere far away, and at some point he felt a strange smell, at first barely perceptible, then increasingly obvious. Thick, heavy, with a light sweetish note, completely unlike the smell of dampness or earth. This smell seemed to envelop him, penetrating his lungs, forcing him to breathe deeper and at the same time heavily, and the lower he descended, the stronger this feeling became, causing anxiety and incomprehensible uneasiness. When his feet finally touched the bottom, he froze for a moment, feeling his head spin, his breathing become uneven, and his heart start to beat faster. He raised the lantern, illuminated the space around, and saw how a dark, thick liquid was slowly oozing from the cracks in the base of the well. It was viscous, almost black, with an oily sheen and rose lazily in bubbles, as if alive, as if breathing. The sight was simultaneously mesmerizing and frightening, and it took several long seconds before he realized that what was in front of him was not water, not mud, and not something accidental, but oil. Real oil, hidden underground all these years. And at that moment, everything fell into place. Zorka's strange behavior, her persistence, her motionless gaze, her daily trips to the well. She felt the smell that he himself could only distinguish by being at the bottom. Stunned by this discovery, he climbed out with difficulty. His hands were shaking, his clothes were stained. His breathing did not return to normal for a long time, but his thoughts were already racing ahead, overtaking each other. The very next day, he contacted specialists, and soon geologists arrived at the AUL, conducted research, took samples, and confirmed what at first seemed incredible. There was a large oil field under his land, previously unnoticed by anyone. The cracks in the old well allowed it to come closer to the surface, and Zorka's keen sense of smell had been catching its scent all this time, and it was thanks to this quiet, inconspicuous cow that the hidden wealth was found. Ivan Matveyevich's life changed rapidly. In place of the former silence, people, machinery, the noise of engines appeared, new roads cut through the steppe, contracts were signed, plans were discussed, and his modest farm gradually turned into a source of serious income. But among all these changes, he still went out into the yard in the mornings, looked at the steppe and at Zorka, who now no longer stood by the well for so long, as if her task had been completed, and in the depths of his soul he felt that, despite all the new opportunities, the money, and the changes, it was this simple way of life, this silence and this strange story that would remain the most important for him, reminding him how sometimes the most inconspicuous things can change a person's fate. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? Please tell us in the comments, and if you like this video, then give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.